When I was younger, I had friends that were biracial, but I think because we were so young, we didn't really think about it, so we never discussed it. And then when I was in junior high and high school, I didn't really have friends that were biracial. Most of them were white because of the area that I lived in, so I never had the opportunity to talk with anyone else about it. And now that I'm in college, I have had friends that I've met that have had different backgrounds, and I guess we really haven't discussed it too much, just same life experiences, I guess, of growing up biracial.
Growing up, there was a close family that we hung out with. They're basically like my play brothers. They were both also from a biracial family, mom white, dad black, and we celebrated all the holidays together, celebrated birthdays together. We never really, like me, myself, and the other kids, we never discussed race or being biracial. It was just kind of a normal thing between us. But I know my mom would discuss with me how their mom's parents never wanted to see them because they were biracial and that they had that prejudice against them. But their dad's side of the family saw them all the time.
When I was in high school, and probably when I was starting in, mostly high school is when I met most of my friends that are biracial. And in high school, I was friends with a group of girls who, we all really considered ourselves, we all actually were biracial, but for the most part, we considered ourselves black. Everybody else considered us black. When people asked us what race we were, we always say we were biracial, but the friends that we hung out with and the other people that we hung out with and stuff were always black in high school. And I think it was just accepted that, we were black, taken for granted that we were black. But I wouldn't say, I haven't really had too many conversations, but I have had a couple conversations with, I'll say two of my friends in particular. And one is actually a girl, she's, it's amazing how she came out so light, but she's very, very light, green eyes, light brown hair, looks totally white, but her dad is like the darkest guy I've ever seen in my life. But she and I have had conversations in the past about being biracial and how sometimes we feel as though we don't necessarily fit in, because I've always identified a little bit more with black culture, and I also felt a little bit more accepted because I don't speak Spanish, and I don't, I've never really associated with many other Latino people, so I always identified more. I've always been surrounded by black people my whole life, and so we were just talking about how sometimes, even though like we do hang out with mostly black people, sometimes still feel, people do make little comments and stuff a lot, and say things, just little comments that aren't really that big of a deal, but after a while, things build up when people keep making comments about, every little thing that you do wrong is automatically because you're mixed, or you don't know how to act, or you don't know, I don't know. So that was something that I discussed with one of my friends, pretty much.
This is kind of negative, I guess. When I came to the U of M, because of my last name being Asian, they assumed that I couldn't speak English, so I was automatically put into the MLK program. And I remember my freshman year, I had to go to a meeting about, I don't know, something with MLK and students, and I was the only one in the room that could speak English. And as soon as that meeting was done, I walked in the office and I changed advisors, and yeah.
I had a lot of awkward situations growing up. One of the things was when I played basketball growing up, and whenever I played against either an all-black team or a team that had at least a couple black girls, I always felt like I had to be tougher and play my best that game and show them, okay, that I'm not just a little black girl on the team. But when I would go to basketball camps or soccer camps, I would be the only black girl, and I felt like a raisin in a popcorn bag. That's, the analogy I always used. And I mean, it was difficult to deal with because it's hard not seeing anybody else around you, especially for me playing soccer. Everyone's like, okay, you play that because you're white, because black girls don't play soccer. And it really is very awkward that you don't. But I know one time, a lot of names I got called Oreo. I called the Inside Out Oreo, you know, especially in elementary school because I, you know, talked proper at times. And I was, until probably about 5th grade, I was the only white girl in the school. So when black kids came in from the hood areas, I wasn't used to seeing them. They weren't used to seeing a girl like me. It was just a different adaptation at first. But I mean, it's something you gotta get used to.
Probably, I guess, a misconception that people have had that, like, I automatically have the ability to fit in, I guess, with either race, like black or white. Like, it's automatic acceptance, I guess, because I have both sides, I guess. But that, I don't know, that's not necessarily always the case. So yeah, in terms of stereotyping, that's been a big thing. Like, I don't have like issues that certain students face because, like, I might not have face the same problems as black students because of my white side or whatever. I may not have the same issues that white students have because I'm black too.
Okay, the first time I was ever called any names is when I lived in the South, and it's very stereotypical, but that's when it happened. When people finally did start accepting that I was multiracial, I was called Oreo, and I was called Zebra. And when they found out that my dad was from Egypt, I was referred to as a sand nigger, which was very offensive. And it was just kind of mind-boggling to me because it was just like, why are you like calling me names because of who my parents are? It didn't make any sense. I came from just growing up in the North and being raised in a multiracial family and being raised in a very liberal background. I wasn't familiar with that kind of language and like that kind of I guess attack on your identity. And so it was really hard for me to kind of not just jump down people's throats when they said stuff like that, but now I chalk it up to ignorance and lack of education. But yeah, I was called things like that. And I guess with stereotypes, I am often referred to as black because my cultural identity, I would say, is African American. I grew up in African American neighborhoods. My father, not the biological one, but the one I grew up with, is African American, and most of my good friends are African American, and just the kind of culture I grew up in is that of an African American background. So even like my biracial friends will be like, "Oh, you're black," and people like we'll be talking, I'll be like, "Yeah, they don't like me because I said this or that," and they're like, "It's because you're black." And so like it's just in joking and in passing, but they attribute certain stereotypes to me because of where I grew up or how I grew up, and it's not because of how I look, but it's still about race. So